If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.
The Other Side at Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, everyone. It's the morning after Election Day. While all eyes are understandably on the presidential race, something quite significant happened here in New York. Voters narrowly passed Proposition 1, the so-called Equal Rights Amendment, in the state election. On the surface, this amendment is about equal rights, but in reality, it's a sweeping measure that adds new anti-discrimination language to our state constitution. It extends protections across a broad array of categories, including race, color, ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, creed, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, pregnancy outcomes, and reproductive health care and autonomy. Whew. Boy, that was a mouthful. Now, those words may sound innocuous, maybe even necessary, depending on your perspective, but the measure is already sparking major concerns, and rightfully so. Critics argue that the language is vague and opens doors to unintended consequences. This amendment could very well allow non-citizens to vote, for instance, and potentially erode parental rights regarding decisions on their children's medical and gender-related care. Legal experts like constitutional attorney Bobby Ann Cox have noted that terms like national origin could lead to protections for non-citizens in ways we haven't seen before, impacting everything from voting laws to school policies. Now, that's a constitutionally guaranteed right in the New York State Constitution. What's particularly interesting here is the political context. Proposition 1 was engineered to boost Democratic turnout by tapping into concerns about reproductive rights and fears over a possible future Republican-led federal government. The Democrats wanted to use it as a rallying point, especially among women and young voters, to energize their base. But instead of being an easy win, this measure quickly became an albatross for many suburban Democratic candidates around the state, forcing them into defensive positions in tight races. I said to Rita Cosby earlier, Laura Gillen was asked when she voted how she voted on Prop 1. She wouldn't say, even though she was asked the question 7 times. 7 times. Rather than rallying support, it appears to have backfired as a political strategy for the governor and the Democratic leadership in Albany. Even though it passed, there's reason to believe this isn't over. Proposition 1 could face a legal challenge. There are strong arguments that this amendment may run afoul of the New York State Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and any legal pushback could keep this issue in the headlines for some time. So despite the victory lap taken by some supporters, it's far from a settled matter. Stay tuned, because when it comes to Prop 1 and its impact on New York's political and social landscape, the story is only just beginning.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTESLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Good morrow, folks. This is The Other Side of Midnight on 77 WABC. I'm Frank Morano. Well, New Yorkers did it again. They went to the polls and sent some surprising messages on this year's ballot propositions. In a big twist, Propositions 2 through 5 passed, while Proposition 6, the one that seemed to slip under most folks' radar, actually failed. That's right. So Proposition 6, which didn't have any specific organized opposition to it beyond people that were opposed to all the propositions, actually failed, but the rest passed. I don't know that I understand it, but let's try to take a closer look at what happened here. First, let's talk about Proposition 6. On paper, it had a little something for everyone. It aimed to create a chief diversity officer position for the city alongside a grab bag of other initiatives to promote diversity and equity within city government. But you know what they say. Sometimes trying to please everyone means you end up pleasing no one. To the conservatives, the term chief diversity officer likely set off alarm bells, feeling like it was another step towards government bloat. Meanwhile, progressives probably balked at supporting anything that the mayor's Charter Revision Commission came up with, especially since the mayor put these questions on the ballot to effectively block a city council proposal. So in the end, it seems Proposition 6 managed to alienate just about everyone for different reasons. But here's where it gets really interesting. New York City Council and a lot of progressive groups campaigned against all of the propositions, urging people to vote no across the board as a kind of protest against the mayor's perceived interference. They didn't like that he had used his power to put these on the ballot, potentially to sideline their own proposal. Yet, even with the council and other progressive groups urging a clean sweep of no votes, Propositions 2, 3, 4, and 5 still passed. That's a bit surprising, don't you think? Maybe New Yorkers are showing a little more independence than the political strategists give them credit for. Even in a city as politically charged as ours, sometimes people don't just follow orders from the council or even the mayor. They read the propositions, they considered them, and they made their own decisions. This time, it looks like they cherry-picked, choosing the ones that resonated and tossing out the one that didn't. Now, don't get me wrong, I voted against Proposition 6 myself, so I can't say I'm shedding any tears over its defeat. But it's curious to me that the one proposition that didn't pass is one that there was no organized opposition to. It's almost as if the idea of adding yet another layer of bureaucracy, a chief diversity officer, was too much, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Maybe there's a lesson here about New Yorkers being savvy enough to spot a mixed bag when they see one. So what do we take away from all this? For one, it's a reminder that voters are still full of surprises, and maybe, just maybe, New Yorkers are paying closer attention than anyone thinks. It looks like the council and the mayor both got messages they didn't quite expect, and perhaps they'll think twice next time they assume the voters are going to follow their lead. But knowing New York City,
Beam me up!
to be continued.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
I realize that the presidential race is grabbing all of the headlines, especially right about now, but there are some fascinating voting trends right here in New York City that deserve our attention. In my view, two big stories have emerged from Tuesday's results. The first story is the surprising surge in support for Donald Trump, with 94% of scanners reporting in New York City. The numbers are Harris at 68% and Trump at 30%. Now, she still won New York City handily, as to be expected, but compare that to 2020, when Biden got 76% of the vote and Trump only had 23% of the vote. Or to 2016, when Clinton dominated with 79% of the vote and Trump got just 18% of the vote. In other words, Trump's support in New York City has nearly doubled over the last 8 years. That's remarkable, especially given how many right-leaning New Yorkers have moved out of state recently. For Trump to reach 30% in the city, that's quite a milestone. And here's why that number matters. If a Republican can get over 30% of the vote in New York City, it usually signals that they could be competitive statewide. So if I'm Lee Zeldin thinking about another run for governor, this news is music to my ears. The same goes for any Republican eyeing a U.S. Senate seat. But it's not necessarily great news for someone like Curtis Sliwa or any other Republican that's running for mayor. The dynamics are different when it comes to city politics, where local issues can sometimes take precedence over national trends. The second story to watch is the Republican flip of a Democratic state Senate seat in Brooklyn. Steve Chan's victory over Iwan Chu is about more than just one seat. It marks a significant shift of the Asian community towards the GOP. Chan's win underscores a growing partnership between New York's Asian community and the Republican Party. And it could be key to expanding the GOP's influence in city and state politics. Republicans seem to be recognizing this and are beginning to embrace the Asian community in a way we haven't seen in recent years. Now, why else does this matter? With Chan's win, the Democrats have lost their supermajority in the New York State Senate. That's huge, because without a supermajority, they can't automatically override the governor's veto. This one race could bring a small but meaningful amount of balance back to Albany. So while the national election is center stage, these local trends are worth paying attention to. We could be seeing the beginning of a new chapter for New York State politics and New York City politics, one that shakes up the balance of power and brings a little more competition back to the Empire State. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't want to read too much into one state Senate race. It looks like Tom Sullivan in Queens, who a lot of Republicans were hoping would win, it looks like he lost. So it was not exactly a red wave within the 5 boroughs, but there are some interesting stories worth telling.
Beam me up!
To be continued.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing, it's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
The Other Side of Midnight.
77 WABC.
Local Spotlight.
Well, New Jersey voters have certainly given us a lot to chew on in the aftermath of this election. The biggest news? Andy Kim taking a U.S. Senate seat after a tough run against the boss system that has been such a dominant force in New Jersey politics. Not a surprise that once Andy Kim was the Democratic nominee, he would win. I think the bigger surprise is that he was able to become the nominee in the first place, running against Phil Murphy's wife, who seemingly had all the money in the world and all the connections in the world. Kim campaigned tirelessly against the county line, an institution many believe keeps real change from happening in New Jersey. He fought to overturn that system, and now he's heading to Washington. I admire this guy's moxie. He really went toe-to-toe with the entrenched political structure, and that takes guts. I think Kim's win signals the kind of shakeup New Jersey politics has long needed. He's taking over from Menendez, and frankly, I think the Garden State will be better off for it. Now, as much as I'd hope to see Curtis Bashaw, who was the Republican in that race, make his way into that Senate seat, I know Curtis from Cape May, and he's a solid guy. Kim's victory isn't just an upset. It's an encouraging sign that maybe, just maybe, New Jersey can be wrestled out of the grip of the political machine. Another big story is Tom Kean Jr.'s re-election to Congress. Kean's race was hard-fought and expensive, with both parties seeing it as a critical battleground. He faced off against Sue Altman, a well-known progressive voice who really brought the heat, especially on issues like police funding and public safety. It was a spirited race, with Kaine painting Altman as out of touch with the district's priorities. In the end, Kaine prevailed with a 7-point lead, solidifying his position in one of New Jersey's most competitive districts. His win suggests Republicans are finding a stronger footing in the state, and it's something to watch as we head into future elections. Kaine's legacy, of course, runs deep in New Jersey, but this win might just signal that the GOP has a viable path forward in the Garden State. And let's not overlook, speaking of Republicans, Maria Lacka's victory in Atlantic City. She took the 5th Ward Council seat in a historic election, pulling in the highest vote total ever recorded in that ward. This was somebody that took over for a councilman that didn't actually live in the district, so this was a special election. So it's all interesting. So all in all, this election might have taken place against the backdrop of a high-stakes presidential race, but in New Jersey, these local results tell us a lot about the changing landscape. Andy Kim, Tom Kaine Jr., Maria Lacka are each, in their own way, shaking up the state's political norms. I mean, think about it. Atlantic City now has a second Republican city councilman. I never thought I'd see the day. It's an interesting time to be watching New Jersey politics, and I, for one, can't wait to see what's next, particularly when it comes to next year's governor's race.
Beam me up.
To be continued.